Hey everybody, this is Daniel Riera, and I'm going to show you how I patch my Eurorack system from scratch to be a voice for a NuRAD wind controller. Yeah, so this is what I would bring to a show, or this is just like a portable, awesome system that I can take to shows and have analog sounds. And I'm going to show you how I put it all together. This is the system that I've been using more or less consistently now for the past 3 years. Not too much has changed. The newest module I got in here is this mini mod VCO by AJH. But I'm going to show you. So first of all, let me explain. This is the controller that I'm playing on. This is a NuRAD made by Berglund Instruments. It's a beautiful 3D printed controller that's based on the very first prototypes of the EWI made by Niall Steiner and played by Michael Brecker. So I was very excited when Johan came out with these a couple years ago. I was one of the first people to get one, and so I'm going to show you how I use this. I've been using it for a while now, so I'm kind of over the learning curve and feel comfortable with it. And the modular synth I've been using since before too, since I was using the 4000S. So you can use this type of setup with a lot of different wind controllers. So the first thing you'll notice plugged in here is my output, which is going to my interface. And that's a Chaos Sevastopol module, great output module. I have the version 1. I think there's a version 2 out now, but this one's fantastic, and I use it for a lot of different things too, because it's got a trigger out, gate out, comparator. So this is a really awesome module, but for today I'm just going to use it pretty simply just to get audio out of the Eurorack and into my interface. And then the next thing I'm going to plug in is my NuRAD controller. So it plugs in with a MIDI cable, which is pretty standard. It's going to light up as soon as I plug this in, because I've kind of customized my NuRAD a bit and also built a Eurorack module that powers this over the MIDI connector. So most MIDI connectors are 5 pins, but only 3 of the pins are used. So there's 2 open pins on this that I'm using to carry 5-volt power from the Eurorack, and also carry analog breath CV control voltage from this breath sensor. So I'm getting to control my modular synth directly with breath, no MIDI, no data loss. It's just like very smooth and buttery. So yeah, and this module right here, it just looks like an unlabeled mult, but this is actually my Eurorack module that I built for the NuRAD. In the early days, Johan has his own version out now, but in the early days they weren't out yet. But Johan was kind enough to share with me his early schematics, and I just made my own. It's not too big circuit back there, but what it does is it takes the breath control voltage from the sensor. I think it's 0 to 3 volts, and it scales that up. So these bottom 4, I have 2 copies each of a 10-volt scaled version of that breath controller and a 5-volt scaled version of that breath controller. And that's awesome for different Eurorack modules that have different standards. Can be quite annoying, like this Befaco Hex VCA needs 10 volts to fully open up, whereas the VCA in the Intelligent Atlantis needs 5 volts. So it's good to have those options. So anyway, let's start making some sound. The first thing I always set up for my live rigs, and this is the core of my live rig, is the Intelligent Atlantis. And I absolutely love this because it's super quick and fast to patch. Like in the world of Eurorack, right, I take my time a lot to patch these sounds from scratch and make stuff, but on the Atlantis I can just get something going really fast, and it's good to be able to have something to tweak in the show. When I'm playing, I'm usually playing these keys a lot. I don't have too much time to tweak. so I can just reach over the Atlantis and make some big changes real fast. But so I'm going to take the CV out of my mutable yarns. Oh, so I forgot to mention my custom NuRAD powering and CV module is connected with some wires behind here to mutable yarns. It's coming in on those other 2 pins. So just by plugging this into mutable yarns, I'm getting the MIDI from the NuRAD into yarns, and I'm also powering it and sending the CV out to these inputs. So I'm going to take channel 2 out of my yarns, and I'll explain why in a little bit, but I'm going to take channel 2 pitch out and channel 2 trigger out, and I'm going to go into the volt per octave input of Atlantis and the gate of Atlantis. Now I'm going to take out of the Atlantis and go into my export module, and we should be able to hear some sound now. Whoa, okay, it's crazy loud. Turn that down a little bit. Okay, so that's how easy it is to get some sound going. The Atlantis is great, but of course it couldn't be a wind controller patch without having some wind control. So I got to take the CV from the NuRAD, from my breakout module, and I'm going to actually, let me get a stackable one because I know I'm going to be using a lot of the mults of this. Come out of one of my 5-volt outputs here and into the envelope, or into the level of the envelope on Atlantis. So that's one of the brilliant features about Atlantis, and also IntelliGel's dual ADSR does this, is they have a level control over the VCA, so you can have your envelope generator and then multiply that by your breath, so you can still use envelopes in a cool way and have them respond to your breath. So now we're going to hear that same sound, but it's going to scale with my breath. We're hearing some clicking right now. That's because the Atlantis is in gate mode. Let me put it in envelope mode. So I'm going to play a little bit and just tweak Atlantis and show you some of the kinds of sounds I can get at it really easily. So. I usually like to leave the frequency and resonance down and use the envelope CV to open the filter, and that's of course the envelope modulated by the level. So let's try kind of a decaying envelope. Is cool with the EWI. I'll put the attack all the way down, the decay about halfway, and sustain and release down so we can really hear that sustain. So that's a cool kind of plucked string, and I love these type of sounds for a bass. So let me use my square wave, and I'm gonna actually make it a little more pulse like. Somewhere kind of like between a jazz guitar and a bass. Something on my NuRAD is bugging out right now, the octave, so excuse me, I gotta figure out what's going on. Seems to not be doing it now. Another technique I like to do on the Atlantis is to add a little bit of filter modulation. I really like the filter modulation with the sample and hold waveform on the LFO. It kind of sounds like the spit in a brass instrument that might be rolling around in there. Kind of graveliness. Can also add the sub bass when I want to fatten the bass up. So see how quick it is to dial in a sick bass patch? That's what I love about having the Atlantis like this, is I can be in a rehearsal, and if there's some song that we're playing and I need to come up with a specific sound, it's pretty easy to dial that in. And I know this synth really well now, so I can just get to where I need to go really fast, or in the middle of a solo even, I can reach over here and tweak stuff. So that's kind of my shapeshifter patch, and that's one that I go to a lot. But now I'm going to do some other types of patches that I will mix with that. So first thing I'm going to take this, I'm going to route this now into the mixer. So I'm going to go out of here and into my mixer over here. And I'm going to put this actually in channel 2. So this is a 6-channel mixer. This is the Mute Plus Mix by Void Modular, made by Sean Pendleton. And I really love this module because it's really, I use this as basically my preset selector. So this Atlantis patch I just did, that could be one preset that I go to in a show. And when I want to hear that, I'll just unmute that here. And we should still hear it. Oh yeah, it's also got these mixer knobs. This really lets me get good gain staging, which is super important, because I used to, for example, I have this DIY Oberheim SEM filter, double one, and I used to not use it that much because it was not as loud as some of my other filters, which is a stupid reason. But if I can mix them here, then I don't have to worry about something being louder or not. I can just use it for its sound qualities and get the level that I need. So I'll turn stuff down here and then make it up here on the master out. Okay, so that's my Atlantis patch. Now let me start building my second patch. So I'm going to take the CV out of channel 1 this time. And the reason why I'm using 2 channels on the mutable yarns is because I am using polyphonic playing modes on the NuRAD. And this allows me to have, I'm just going to use 2 channels for my harmonies. It's duophonic, but that's plenty to control. I mean, it's already enough keeping 4 oscillators that I have in this case in tune with each other. But yeah, so I'm going to take the CV, the pitch, the volt per octave. I'm going to go into both of these oscillators. And then Okay, so at this time I'm going to take some of my 10 volt scaled breath CV out of here, and I'm going to go into my Befaco Hex VCA up here. And so this is one that I built, and I did a few mods on it besides the panel mod. It's actually the original black panel, but I just sanded it off because I wanted to have a more consistent look with all my silver modules. And then I got this Frico blip and stopped caring. But anyway, so this is a Befaco Hex VCA with a custom panel, and also has a mod that I did where I just connected all these input jacks together in the back. It already had normalized jacks, so if you don't have anything plugged into these, this same CV is gonna go down all of these channels, and that's really cool for me because I can get I can have different chains and then be muting them here, turning them on and off, and also getting different response curves over here. So I have my VCA. Let's go out of channel 1 of the VCA into channel 1 of the mixer with this tiny cable. Okay, now I'm going to take my square wave out and into the first input of my SEM Oberheim filter. This is made by a guy called Muga. I got a long time ago on the former Muff Wiggler site, now known as Mod Wiggler. Bought those there, the PCB panels or the PCB set, and put it together with this custom panel. So I'm gonna go out of here. Oops, I gotta move my CV jack. Okay, now I'm gonna go in to the input, and now hopefully we'll hear something. Okay, so this is the start of my new voice chain. Doesn't sound that great right now, but we'll work on that. Just a basic square right now. And let's see, I'm going to put this filter in low pass mode. So I want to use my breath to open that filter. So I'm going to take another 10 volt breath CV out. And I'm going to go into the FM1 input here. Now we should hear my breath opening and closing this filter. We change the pulse width. I really love square waves, but I don't actually like them in the square position. I like pulse waves. Okay, so now so this module here in another mystery molt looking thing is actually a very cool and special module that I bought from David Dixon, the amazing synth designer, inventor, the man behind a lot of amazing IntelliGel designs. And he was also on the Muff Wiggler / Mod Wiggler site. It was Muff Wiggler at the time. I do approve of that name change, by the way. But he was selling these, he offered to sell me these prototypes of a module that generates a perfect fifth above an oscillator. And I don't quite understand how it works. I know it takes the sub octave of an oscillator. So it's got a sub octave generator in there. And it's also will give you the perfect fifth out. It does some type of logic comparison between a triangle wave and a sub octave wave of the same oscillator to give you a perfect fifth up wave. So, and the way this is laid out is it's twice of the same circuit. Those 4 jacks each, and the top one is a triangle in, bottom one is a square in, and then from that it'll give you, this one is the perfect fifth up and this one is a sub octave down. But I already have the square and triangle waves coming from the Dixie 2s behind the panel. I ran some wires in there, so I don't have to always put wires there. If I want to use this, I just take this one out. That's going to be my perfect fifth of up from this first Dixie 2. And we should now hear a perfect fifth interval doubling each note. Cool, so there's a perfect fifth patch, but we're gonna make it a little spicier. Instead of coming in here directly with my breath CV, I'm gonna go into channel 1 of maths now, and I'm gonna use it as a slew generator to create a slewed version of that breath control, and that's gonna give me like an envelope shape with like a sweep in the beginning. It's gonna sound kind of like an auto wah, like wop 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 wop. So as I hit the wind, it's gonna take a little bit of time to catch up to my breath and give it a little bit of a scooped transient sound. So here, let's try that. I'm gonna have to dial in probably maths to get the shape I want. Let's start with the release all the way down and attack all the way down, and I'll turn it up until I get the right sound. Cool, so now that's giving me a little more attack on that transient, a little more wop, 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 which kind of helps cut in a mix. A lot of times that's what you're actually hearing from me in the mix of the band, is that wop, wop, wop. Okay, so now I'm basically gonna duplicate the same patch again so I can do 4-note chords. So this patch has a built-in perfect fifth. That means if I have 2 of them, I can make any chord that you can make with 2 perfect fifths in different configurations. So that's a lot of chords that I really like minor 7, major 7, sus chords. You know, they're like chill sounding chords because that perfect fifth is very stable. So let me start patching up here my second my second version of that. Okay, so now we should hear a second patch, the same as the first one that we just did. Oh, I don't hear anything. Oh, got to connect the output of my VCA2. Okay, so they're really different tuning. So let me get these. Let me go to my first patch, the Atlantis, and I'll tune the first oscillator to that. Okay, so now we're hearing two copies of the same voice. So that's a Dixie oscillator with a David Dixon perfect fifth generator added to it with a SEM filter and into the Befako VCA, two copies of that same signal. They're both receiving the same breadth VCA. And so now what I can do is I can turn on the polyphonic mode of the NuRAD by pressing this special key combo. It starts blinking, and now I should be able to play duophonic mode. So that's a very powerful patch, as you can see. It allows me to do chords. And now, so far I have two basic patches, or like 2.5. So I have my Atlantis one. Oops, it's not responding because I have my duophonic mode on still. So notice how the envelope is retriggering. That's kind of bugging me, but the way I have mutable yarns set up is that channel 1 outputs a non-retriggering envelope or legato envelope. Channel 2 puts out a retriggering one. So let me just move that over, and that should smoothen out. And here's again the polyphonic one. I can turn half of it off if I don't want a chorus sound. Okay, so now I'm going to add another detail to this polyphonic SEM sound. I'm going to patch the volt per octave CV of the two separate channels, and I'm going to go into the filter mod again. So that's going to make it so that this filter opens up more the higher I go up on my instrument. and the two channels will be separate. So if I play a low note on one and a high note on the other one, I'll get a more closed filter on the low note and a more open filter on the high note. And my patch cables are just all over the floor. That's okay. So here's the volt per octave for channel 1. And here's the volt per octave for channel 2. And I'll set them roughly the same level. So hear how it's getting sharper the higher up I go. So that helps a lot too, like for cutting in a mix and also for just hearing myself. Okay, so I have a few more patch cables left, so let me see what other voices I can stick in here to round out this setup. I have 6 possible channels here. I don't think I have quite enough modules and cables to make all that happen, but okay, so another sound that I like to use a lot is just a simple sine wave. So I'm going to take this sine wave here out of the first Dixie. It's going to go straight into a VCA and out to my channel 4. Cool. So I guess now I should talk about delay, because that's a very important part of my sound. So right now this mixer is going straight to the output, but let me put it into this All Right Devices Chronoblob 1, which I love. I'm going to go into there and out to my export. So now we should have some delay, and this will be a little more sauced up. The delay is really fun to mess with and tweak for just wild, wacky noise effects, which is very fun to do. And just, yeah, so if I'm just tweaking the delay time of this while playing and it's creating that scattered sound. Another thing I do a lot live is I set up a foot pedal to go in between the send and return of this delay, so that allows me to have foot control over the wetness. So that's pretty much it for my live setup. Haven't used all my modules, but this is already plenty enough for me to work with during a live set. Usually just 2, 3 sounds is enough for me to work with, especially since I'm using the knobs to also modulate stuff and change while I'm playing. So all the sounds can kind of be shapeshifters. But yeah, I hope this was informative, and hope this helps you with your adventure with Eurorack, with wind controllers, making music in general. Yeah.